Okay, well, let's start this game of Civilization, but before we actually start, I want to go, and I've set it up completely at this point, except for stacking those properly, but that's no big deal. I do want to go over my picks. First of all, I went over in the introduction why I like Assyria so much. Some of that is due to the new trade cards. They are the power house as far as I'm concerned. They're sitting in one of the best places. For one thing, one clue is they have this 1400 sign here. Another is they push quite far. Now, Illyria looks more attractive until you hit this line. I find the three colors and obviously the two cities to be fairly easy to hit. It's this line here, the 1,000 points, that I actually, in cards along, in civilization cards, that I find one of the hardest barriers to hit. And Assyria has a nice little bump there that helps them. Now, so does Crete, but Crete has problems as a naval power. They have to expend a lot of their manpower on boats, even very early in the game. And the only other one is Babylon, who has the same problem as Egypt, which is they might have trouble hitting that three color. Usually somewhere in these three regions, they have to take a pass. Often it's in the first two. May not be the case, we'll see. It's nothing guaranteed. Let's go to my second pick. Well, the second pick was Italy. Italy's got a decent chart. Nice shot over here. Pushes out far. It doesn't hit the 1400, but I don't think that's as important with the old trade cards. And it's quite far from Assyria. I didn't want to pick a cluttered pick, but with 7 powers you could pretty much pick whatever you like, including Asia. You could take Asia right away here after Assyria's been picked, figuring Assyria will take this side, you'll head this way, and usually such deals do come about right away. Alright, for number 3 I took Egypt. Well, like I said, Egypt has some problems with the new trade cards, but with the old ones I'm expecting them to do quite well. And they're in sort of a very far away from the other powers. They're in a rich area. There's no question of that. They can grab this and then some of the Near East and really put themselves in a strong position. Fourth, Thrace. Okay, why? Well, this is kind of interesting. Thrace and Illyria have almost the same chart, except Thrace gets a bonus here, and they get by a little cheaper. That little cheaper doesn't really help you. The other bonus might be a slight advantage. By picking Thrace, I think I'm denying Illyria from existing. Only someone very, very violent would push in there in the 7-player game. In an 8-player game, I would have definitely taken Illyria before Thrace, because I think it's got the jump in terms of getting down here into the Greek areas. Now, by taking Thrace, I still have the same positioning, so it's really not too big a disadvantage. There's some nice rich provinces here in terms of size that'll help me maintain my cities with large populations outside of them. I find that kind of pleasant, but it wouldn't be so good without the combination. Fifth is Africa. Africa's kind of got the, alright, maybe it's not the best place in the world. There aren't a lot of things here. I'm going to have to shift into the Italian territories. With Illyria gone, there may be a little bit of pressure off there. I may have to even make my way up into the islands here, although those are easier for the Italians to get to. It's always possible for Africa to move on Egypt, but that's not really why you pick them. You pick them because everything else is getting kind of cluttered. Maybe Babylon was a better pick at this point, and in fact they got the 6th pick. And the 7th, and Babylon is like Egypt in that they have this floodplain, a lot of riches near them though. They have very, very valuable territory off the floodplain, so they can actually migrate away from it, something Egypt has trouble doing. And then for the 7th, I took Crete. Crete is sort of the wild card in things. So the question here is, do I want to wedge myself into one of these dangerous places? Which is a possibility, because Crete is a troublesome power to play sometimes. But without competition here. There's a lot of wealth. They have a couple quick locations here. The problem is by the time they hit this wall, they have to have already sailed somewhere because they can't just build these cities. Now I know Advanced Civ actually allows you, and this is to me one of the things that destroys the elegance of the game. It allows you to live with people in the same area that the cities are. I don't see any reason, historically to say, oh no, you can't do that. Obviously, the population was centered around the cities. I say the city abstractly represents that to deal with this version of the game. But there's a certain elegance to the walls that the cities provide in terms of not being able to move population as easily through it. And really, it's just a gameplay issue. Largely, I think A-Civ is better as a simulation or as a story of the whole progress. Although it's more detailed and you end up spending more time puzzling over what can I buy, what can I not, because there's so many different Civ cards available and they all have different abilities and everything. That's all very interesting. I find it a huge headache, kind of like Age of Renaissance. But I can definitely see the enjoyment of that side of things. The simplicity of this game is what I like in my Euros, even my big Euros. And I consider this one of the bigger Euros without being a real, there's not a lot of annoying calculation going on in this. There's a little bit with adding those up, but there are so few of them that it works pretty well for them. All right, let's get it kicked off then. So, first thing we do is we collect taxes. Well, nobody has any cities, so there's no taxes. Population expansion. Here, every single group is going to quickly double. By the way, I'm probably going to need more table. I'm kind of holding off on it because if I can go a couple of days of filming without expanding my table base, that'll be for the best. I'm not going to go into this much detail on every turn, but this is the first turn of the game. I think seeing the whole thing kind of play out is a good idea. Census, well, we count. Hey, everybody's got 2. All these, we'll move up to 2, and they'll be in order. I'm not going to worry about stacking them right now. All right. Construct ships. This would be a terrible time to construct ships. You'd have to use population, and you wouldn't have any population afterwards. Great. Movement. Okay, well, everybody's got the same census value, so we do this in AST order. And it doesn't much matter, to tell you the truth. You just have to make sure you're not in a 1 area at this point in the game. I'm going to spread my Africans out. No real reason against that. Second is Italy. They actually have to do something. They're going to also spread out, try to grab some territory down here, but they do have to worry about the riches here. Something I didn't mention in the overview. These little triangles are volcanoes. They're what are a risk when the volcanic eruption comes up. Next is Thrace. We definitely want to get moving down with Thrace. Crete, doesn't really matter. Spreading out makes life easier, I guess. I don't know. Assyria. Want to get moving with Assyria, and I kind of want to spread out in this direction because I'm afraid of Babylon. Babylon wants to claim territory, so they'll push forward, and they'll push forward with some strength. And now Egypt also wants to get themselves kind of forward. I got to make sure not to leave these behind because I will want them eventually. Okay. Build cities. You can't build cities in the first turn of the game. You need 6 people. You only have 2. Remove surplus population. Nobody did anything stupid like putting 2 guys in a 1 area, so that doesn't happen. Acquire trade cards. No cities, so no trade cards. Trade. Can't do that. Acquire civ cards. Resolve calamities. There aren't going to be any. And now the AST. And it's an auto move in the Stone Age. That's the first turn. I'll come back after spreading out a little bit more. when things kind of get a little more interesting, because really it is just going to play with people kind of wandering around a little bit until we get towards where the cities are. The only question is, will we see a conflict or something? So I'll be back in a bit. Okay, so we skipped the turn basically and pushed forward yet again. Not going to explain too much. This is the situation after population explosion. Now we're at the census. Well, I've moved the numbers up to 8 and got them nicely stacked now. Ooh. This is an important moment. Some players, especially new to the game, will think, I can gather 6 people together and build a city. Bad move, right? Here's the reason. Your population doubles every turn. If you build a city now, it's going to take a couple more turns before you can build your second city, and you're just not going to get much off of it in terms of trade cards. If you're Egypt or Babylon, you can't do it. You have to maximize your growth and then build 2 cities on this turn to make it over the hump. But some of the other countries could do it. Oh, by the way, there's a suggested optional. Africa, this gray hump here actually is slid back 1. I'm going to be playing with that. I think overall that's the accepted answer. It's an option that they say wasn't play tested very well, but my feeling is Africa's got some serious problems. But often they have to build cities before that anyhow, so it's not too big a deal. But the reason that I'm on video right now, instead of just continuing the spread out, because there's not much that's going to happen. The only real question are, how do these things resolve? Are they going to come to conflict? And we'll look at them when they do. Is that somebody needs to build a boat. Most specifically, Crete. Now, if Crete builds a boat, they have to decide which direction they're going in. It doesn't much matter. But 1, 2, 3, and then they can't get up there. Or 1, 2, 3, 4, but then they can't get over here. One thing I didn't mention when you're building boats, if you have a boat on the board, you can maintain it for the cost of 1 treasury or 1 person in that space. Anyway, this is kind of a tough call. There's a lot of cities in here, but more land here. And the decision's never an easy one for me. 1, 2, 3, 4. I think I'm going to go for Asia Minor first, because this looks kind of ugly with the 2 of them rushing down there. Because of that, I'm going to build my boat back here so I can sail through and pick people up. And I've got to be kind of careful because I've got to hit a hump there. And I got to build at least 1 city on Crete and probably 1 somewhere else. We'll see how that works out though. Anyway, we'll go ahead with the movement. Okay, so now we're at Thrace's movement. Italy is spread out like this. They know they're at risk here. They have 2 pieces here. If Thrace moves 3 in, Thrace can kill 2 Italians at a cost of 1 to themselves. And I'll explain that very briefly. Italy removes first. We're still over. Thrace removes 1. We're still over. Italy removes 1. Now we're good. Thrace has 2 pieces here. They're going to go ahead and do this because they want control down here to the south. And otherwise, well, they'll push down here. And even this is safe because they get to move first. This guy over here, they're going to try to claim as much land as they can. They're being very violent here. But Thrace is a country that can afford to be, as kind of can Illyria and Assyria. These countries have a certain bullying aspect at the early stages of the game because their requirements, especially here, are further back. Now, Italy has that too, but they go before Thrace, and they were being kind of bullish by pushing down into here. Anyway, I'll continue the rest of the movement, see if the Assyrians are as violent with the Babylonians as Thrace has been. Well, actually, Assyria can't be as violent with the Babylonians because they go before the Babylonians. So they've kind of spread down here. Here, where things are kind of ugly. But here's the thing. The Babylonians actually can't afford to be violent either. They could conceivably have moved pieces into a location to directly contest the Assyrians. They don't want to do that because they just meet this if they don't get in any fights at all. And that's one of the of course, there's the question, do you take a hold back turn? Some players definitely believe in that. I'm usually against that, but maybe I will. We see the Cretans have spread up here. With the conflict here, it was almost tempting to sail back here 1, 2, 3, 4 and build up here. I'm only moving 3 people into there anyway, so it's not obvious that I want it to not inhabit the Greek mainland. Let's take care of that conflict. You already saw what was going to happen, so I'm just going to bop these back into place. It's important for speed and care to keep the stacks in things that you can count quickly. I like to keep them stacked in 5s. Makes the census count a lot easier when you come around to it, because you know you have 47 pieces in this game, 55 in the smaller number, and then you just subtract off however many pieces you have in your stock and your treasury from the total. You can count on the board, but it's more expensive. We can see the Africans are spreading out, kind of putting a challenge on the Egyptians, and this is one of their powers. They can push forward because Egypt can't afford to take a loss unless they step back a turn. All right, well, we're not doing anything here in terms of trade, building cities, or anything like that, because we're still too small. Nobody wants to take that hit right now. So we're moving into the next turn, and everybody still pushes forward. But now we're at the barrier. Babylon and Egypt have to make their decision. Do they want to move forward or not? My gut tells me to do so always, but we'll see.